I've always believed that what makes a nation strong isn't just its wealth or its weapons or its towering buildings that kiss the sky. It's not its military power, its ability to impose itself on another. What makes a nation strong is the character of its people, the endurance of its soul, the compassion it shows in adversity, and the dignity it holds when being tested. And my friends, right now, the soul of a great nation is being tested. India, a country of over 1 billion dreams, has been slapped in the face with a staggering tariff hike, 50% on its exports to the United States. 50%. That's not a negotiation, that's a declaration. I have walked this earth long enough to know that when power feels threatened, it doesn't whisper, it shouts. It doesn't extend its hand, it builds a wall, and in that moment, truth reveals itself. Because this, my friends, is not just about business. It's not just about economics. This is about respect. It's about partnership. And it's about how the world sees itself in the mirror of America's decisions. Because when one nation decides that its way forward is to push another down, what it's truly doing is showing the cracks in its own moral foundation. India has stood tall for centuries. With its ancient wisdom, its spiritual heartbeat, its resilient innovation, India is not just an emerging power, it is a powerful presence. A culture so rich it sings in every language spoken, dances in every village drumbeat, and flows in every line of poetry whispered under moonlit skies. And now this vibrant nation finds itself in the crosshairs of an administration that sees tariffs as leverage and friendship as something to be traded like cattle. That is not leadership. That is not diplomacy. That is bullying dressed up as policy. I want you to understand this isn't the first time India has been underestimated. Colonizers came with their flags, their guns, their greed, thinking they could own her spirit. But India didn't fold. She didn't break. She rose. She endured the salt marches, the beatings, the betrayals. She gave birth to Mahatma Gandhi, who taught the world that peace was more powerful than violence, that truth could shake empires. And now when the winds of injustice blow again, India rises again, not with bitterness but with resolve. Let's speak plainly here. President Donald Trump's decision to hike tariffs to 50% on Indian imports isn't about protection, it's about provocation. It's about putting political theater over global partnership. It's about telling the world, we'll do what we want and we don't care who it hurts. But guess what? People care. Americans care. Indians care. The world cares because we are all connected by trade, by travel, by technology, and when one thread of that connection is yanked so harshly, the whole fabric trembles. India has responded with grace, but also with clarity. Prime Minister Modi didn't bow. He didn't beg. He stood up. And he told the world, we will not be treated unfairly. That moment wasn't just about policy, it was about pride, about a country that has always chosen dialogue, but will not allow dignity to be discounted for the sake of diplomacy. And that's what real strength looks like. It's not in a tariff war, it's in the calm, firm voice of a people who know who they are and what they're worth. Now I know some will say this is just how negotiations work, that tariffs are tools, not threats, that this is business as usual. But let me ask you, since when did diplomacy become a poker game where trust is the first casualty? Since when did friendship mean favoring your own reflection while scorning the hand that reached out across oceans to build something lasting? India has been a faithful friend to the United States, a tech partner, a defense ally, a vibrant growing market that has opened its doors again and again. But friendship is not a one-way street. You can't just show up when you need votes or contracts or photo ops, then turn your back when it's time to share the burdens and benefits of global leadership. I've walked through villages in India where children learn under tin roofs and teachers write lessons on chalkboards with broken edges. But there is joy there because there is hope. And that hope was built on the promise of a better future, on the promise that the world would be fat, partnerships would be mutual, that if they worked hard, they would be seen, respected, uplifted. That promise is what gets shattered when policies are made in boardrooms without a conscience. This tariff hike is not just an economic blow, it's a psychological one. It says you don't matter enough. It says we'll do what we want and you'll take it. But India has shown the world that it won't just take it. It will rise above it with innovation, with resolve, with dignity. We must ask ourselves, what kind of world do we want to live in? One where countries play tit for tat until nothing is left but scorched earth? Or one where we uplift each other, even when it's hard, one where the strong support the growing, not exploit them? Because here's the truth, in our shared humanity, when one nation suffers, the ripple touches us. When a farmer in India loses his market, a family in Detroit loses a future innovation, when we close off to each other, we close the door on possibility. I have always said that education is the key to everything, and maybe the greatest education we need right now is a lesson in humility, a lesson in listening. Because India is not just a trade partner, it is the beating heart of a billion stories, stories of triumph, of talent, of toil, stories that deserve to be honored, not taxed into silence. What we are witnessing is not just a policy dispute, it is a test of value, of who we choose to be when our power is questioned, of whether America will stand for fairness or fall for fear, of whether we choose punishment or partnership. I hope we choose the latter. I pray we choose the latter, because this moment is bigger than terror. It's about whether we let short-term strategy kill long-term friendship. It's about whether we honor the hand that helped build so much of Silicon Valley, that educated doctors, engineers, and dreamers who now live, work, and thrive across America. It's about whether we remember that true greatness lies not in how loud you can shout, but in how well you can listen. Not in how many walls you can build, but in how many bridges you can walk across, hand in hand. India has made it clear, it will not be pushed, and that clarity is powerful. It's not the fire of revenge, it's the fire of resolve. A fire lit not in rage, but in righteousness. India is standing, not just for itself, but for every nation who's ever been told they must accept less, stay silent, stay small, and that courage is contagious. I want you to know something else. The people of both our nations are watching, from the streets of Kolkata to the corners of Kansas. From the beaches of Goa to the neighborhoods of Chicago, people see what's happening and they feel it. They feel the sting of being undervalued, the confusion of mixed messages, the longing for something better than threats and retaliations. People want real leadership, not political chess moves. This is not the end of a partnership. It is a call to redefine it, to make it stronger, wiser, and more equal. To build a future not on tariffs and taxes, but on trust, and I believe we can get there if we dare to listen more than we speak. If we dare to understand more than we judge. If we dare to see each other not as competition, but as companions on this beautiful, broken, and breathtaking journey of being human together. When we talk about Trump's tariff hike, raising duties to 50% on Indian imports, we're not just talking about numbers on a spreadsheet. We're talking about lives, about relationships built over decades, about the silent labor of artisans in Jaipur who carve tradition into wood, about textile workers in Surat who stitch dreams into cotton, about the farmers in Maharashtra who grow the spices that have flavored American homes for generations. You may not see them in the boardrooms or on the headlines, but they are the ones who feel the earthquake first when decisions like this are made. And what is so painful, so deeply disappointing, is the sheer abruptness of it all. No warning, no room for negotiation, no regard for partnership, just a decree. And in that decree, there is something more dangerous than the economic implications. It's the message that respect is conditional, that relationships can be sacrificed at the altar of political gain, that a country like India can be strong when convenient and sidelined when not. That is not leadership, my friends. That is transactional diplomacy, and it has consequences. India's response wasn't hostile, it wasn't erratic, it was calm, dignified, and unapologetically clear. We will not accept being treated unfairly. And there was power in that statement, because in those 12 words lies a history of resistance. India, a land colonized and looted, knows what it means to be taken for granted, but this is a new India, one that carries the wisdom of its past, but the fire of a new generation, one that codes satellites, heals the sick, feeds the hungry, and votes with passion. What the Trump administration doesn't seem to understand is that tariffs are not just about revenue, they are about trust. They're about saying, we no longer value your contribution to our market.